Xiong Pao Lee is preparing for a traditional healing ceremony. He is a Hmong shaman. In order to become a Hmong shaman, one must have a spiritual vision. According to tradition, that usually happens during an illness. For Mr. Lee, it happened when he was 17. Now at 65, Mr. Lee spends most of his time performing ceremonies for his patients. This man, Zong Yi Yang, complains about the constant pain over his torso and arms, but medical doctors could not find anything wrong. He believes the shaman can cure him. Like Mr. Yang, about half of the Hmong in the United States today still have strong faith in the shaman's healing and guidance. They believe in animism, that all objects have souls and spirits. To perform the healing ritual, the shaman covers his face with a black veil and wears noisemakers over his fingers. As soon as chanting begins, he is overcome by a trance which takes his mind into the spiritual world. There, he summons the good spirits to help him deal with the evil spirits. His body sways in the trance for hours until he finds an answer from the spiritual world.
The shaman ceremony was wonderful. It was really very powerful.
Dr. Kathy Culhane-Pera experienced the healing power of a Hmong shaman for the first time back in 1989 when she was doing an anthropology research for a school thesis. But in this case, the student became a patient.
I've been trying to get pregnant for many years and have been unable to, and so I was doing all the things the doctors had told me and doing all the tests and everything, taking medicines and shots, and it wasn't working. And at that time, I was in Thailand, and I was visiting Hmong villages. When I finally settled down in one village and lived in this one village for on and off for over 3 years, it was those people in there reaching out to me who had wanted to help me that I ended up getting treatment.
Her husband Tim was skeptical at first, but then
I was all in favor of resorting to the Hmong shaman. The Western doctors wanted to send Kathy down to Bangkok and inject her full of drugs. It got to the point where she would have to be hospitalized overnight, and at that point we pulled the plug on it and said, it's not meant to be.
After a year of ceremonies and treatments from a shaman, finally, Dr. Culhane-Pera became pregnant, and at the same time, they adopted a son. Her daughter is now 3, and because she is convinced the shaman ceremonies worked, she must, by tradition, pay the shaman only after the child is born.
And so then I interpreted that to mean that if I didn't get pregnant, I wouldn't have to pay, and that maybe even if she didn't survive until 2 or 3 months of age, I probably wouldn't have had to pay. And that's not true for all services that a shaman does or a herbal medicine woman does, but it's true for for fertility.
For Mr. Yang, monetary payment would not be necessary. The shaman determined that the cause of his patient's pain are due to spells from the spirits of his mother and a former lover. He claims he broke the spells, but the patient needs to give a sacrifice to his mother if he gets better within 30 days. For many, resorting to a shaman is an option, but sometimes that conflicts with medical doctors.
I think of a case where that was the situation. A woman had a hemorrhage into the back of her brain, and the neurosurgeon had wanted to relieve that bleeding. The family had a different view of things, but not a view that necessarily contradicted the neurosurgeon's view, but rather that that her soul had left her body and gone on to be reincarnated, and they felt they needed to call that soul back. And so they went home that night to call her soul back. And then the next morning, they came back to the hospital and consented to surgery.
That patient is Zhang. She is now doing well. During our visit, we also met her shaman. Gaje Yang, one of the notable Hmong shamans in the Twin Cities.
We must do ritual to help the souls. Medication alone cannot heal people.
However, shaman healing does not always work. Even the top Hmong shamans admit they have patients that they cannot cure. And if they cannot cure every patient, we wonder what actually goes on behind the veil.
Honestly, you don't see anything. It's what your heart tells you that keeps you chanting. But one thing's certain is that you lose all your sensitivities when falling into a trance.
While about one half of Hmong still keep that traditional practice, the other half who converted to Christianity doubt the shaman's power. To Reverend Zhu Thao, shaman ceremonies are similar to Christian prayers, even though the beliefs are different.
The old way, which is they believe in the spirit, everyone wait for the shaman to do the ritual thing and pray and to help the sick person. And that's the difference. And when we became Christians, we believe that everyone can talk with God directly.
There's no scientific proof that either way is the answer to healing. But Dr. Culhane-Pera says keeping an open mind about Oneng, the Hmong word for shaman ritual, is all you can do.
You know, I don't know, but I have a very warm spot in my heart because of my love for my daughter, for Oneng and their power and their abilities that I will never really know or understand.
This is Fong He reporting for Newsnight, Minnesota.